When I moved back to my hometown for the summer, I had no idea it would be anything more than a pause, a break between college semesters, a few months to work a part-time job, maybe catch up with some old friends. I wasn't expecting anything new. If anything, I was looking forward to a little boredom. Tyler, my best friend since 5th grade, had just landed a research opportunity overseas. Before he left, he offered me his room for the summer. His mom had the space, and I could save money while working at the hardware store on Main Street. It seemed like a win-win. Just don't eat all the cereal, he joked over FaceTime the night before I moved in. Tell your mom I'll try not to burn the place down, I replied. Tyler's mom, Miss Callahan, no, Rachel, she insisted I call her Rachel, was in her early 40s and nothing like the strict, no-nonsense woman I remembered growing up. Back then, she was just someone who made us sandwiches and yelled at us to keep our shoes off the carpet. Now she seemed different, confident, warm in a way that made people open up. She worked part-time from home as a graphic designer, had a thing for jazz vinyls and strong coffee, and always wore these simple, elegant clothes that made her look like she'd stepped out of an ad. Not flashy, just comfortable in her own skin. It was the kind of energy that made you feel seen. The first few days in her house were easy. I'd wake up early to leave for my shift at the hardware store, come home to the smell of something cooking, and we'd exchange a few words in the kitchen. Sometimes we'd sit at the dining table while she finished up work and I ate leftover pasta or a sandwich she'd left out for me. We talked about small things at first, what the neighbors were up to, whether Tyler was adjusting to life in Portugal, how annoying customer service could be. But every now and then, our conversations dipped into something a little deeper. Like when she casually mentioned she hadn't been on a date in over a year. Or when she asked me what I really wanted to do after college, not just what my major told people. There was one evening about a week in that stuck with me. It was a Friday. My shift had been long, and my back ached from stacking boxes in the storeroom. When I got back, she had just finished a run. Her cheeks still flushed, her hair tied back, sweat clinging to her collarbones. Rough day? She asked, handing me a glass of cold water. You have no idea. She laughed and gestured toward the porch. Sit for a minute. The sky's worth looking at. We ended up watching the sun go down from the steps, each of us sipping something cold, letting the silence do most of the talking. Do you ever wish you could pause time? She asked suddenly, looking straight ahead. Every day, I said. I didn't think you'd say that. Why? She shrugged. You're young. Most people your age want fast forward, not pause. I didn't have a clever answer, so I just smiled and nodded. Later that night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. The way she'd said it, the way she looked at me, it felt like there was something unspoken just beneath her words. I told myself I was imagining it, that it was just a passing comment. Peaceful moment, nothing more. But in the days that followed, I caught myself noticing things I hadn't before, like how she always made sure there was dinner for two, even when she said she wasn't hungry. How she lingered in the hallway after saying goodnight. How her eyes stayed on me for a beat longer than they used to. Still, I pushed the thoughts aside. After all, she was Tyler's mom. This was her house. I was just the guest. And then came the night everything shifted. It started with glances, just long enough to notice but short enough to deny. The kind where you're not sure if you're imagining them, or if something real is quietly building between you. I began to pick up on things I couldn't unsee. The way Rachel would come into the kitchen while I was making breakfast, even if she had coffee and toast already in her office. The way her hand would briefly graze my shoulder when passing by. The way she'd lean against the counter while we talked, her eyes scanning my face like she was trying to memorize it. It wasn't overt. It was quiet, slow. One night, I came home late after helping a neighbor move some furniture. I was sweaty, tired, and starving. I didn't expect anything, but when I stepped into the kitchen, there was a plate of warm roasted vegetables and grilled chicken on the table. A note next to it read, "Figured you'd be hungry. R." I smiled, genuinely touched. I showered, ate, and was about to head to bed when I noticed the glow from the back porch. She was sitting there, barefoot, legs tucked beneath her, a glass of wine in her hand. She turned when she heard the door open. "Hey," she said softly. "Couldn't sleep. Was just going to say thanks," I replied, stepping out. "For the food." She patted the seat beside her. "Sit for a bit. The night feels good." I hesitated, then walked over. The air was warm, thick with the scent of jasmine from the garden. The only sound was the distant hum of cicadas. She sipped her wine and tilted her head back. "You're different, you know?" "Different how?" "You're present. Most people your age are glued to their phones or trying to be somewhere else. You listen." I shrugged. "I like quiet." "Me too." We sat there for a while, not talking. The silence didn't feel empty, felt shared. Then, just before we stood to go in, she reached out and touched my arm lightly, just her fingertips barely there, but enough to make my pulse quicken. "I'm glad you're here this summer," she said. I looked at her. "Me too." We didn't say more. We just went inside. The next morning, I tried to brush it off. Maybe it meant nothing. Maybe I was reading too much into it. But something had changed. And once the shift began, it didn't stop. A few days later, we ended up spending the whole afternoon fixing the broken shelf in the garage. It should have taken an hour, but she kept finding reasons to linger, little things to adjust, tools to pass, questions to ask. At one point, she stood close behind me as I drilled a screw into place. I could feel the warmth of her body just inches from my back. My skin prickled. "You've really grown up," she said suddenly. "You used to be all elbows and knees." I turned and smirked. "Thanks, I think." She laughed and shook her head. "I mean it. You carry yourself differently now." There was a pause. "You remind me of someone I used to know," she added. Her tone was quieter, heavier. "Someone good." She looked up at me. "Someone I should have paid more attention to." And then she did it again. That small touch. Her fingers on my forearm this time. Slower, firmer. Neither of us moved. She didn't say anything else. She just walked back toward the house, leaving the door open behind her. That night, I didn't sleep much. I lay awake thinking about everything. Her voice, her eyes, the way her hand had lingered. I told myself I was making it bigger than it was. But I also knew that if she touched me again, said anything close to what I thought she might be thinking, I wasn't sure I'd have it in me to step back. And then came the night where all the tension finally gave way. It was a Thursday. I remember that because it had rained all morning and the scent of wet earth still hung in the air even after the skies cleared. I had come home earlier than usual. My shift had been cut short because of a power issue at the store. Rachel was in the living room, working on her laptop with jazz humming softly from the speakers. "Hey, surprise early return," she said, glancing up with a warm smile. I nodded. Storm knocked out the systems. Nothing to scan, nothing to sell. "Silver linings," she said, setting her laptop aside. "Want some tea?" We sat in the living room for a while, sipping from mismatched mugs. The conversation floated effortlessly between memories of Tyler's high school pranks and her stories from college. She had a soft laugh when she talked about her younger days, one that made me forget how many years were supposed to sit between us. Then the power flickered. Twice. The lights dimmed, and everything hummed back to silence. The music cut out. Rachel stood, walking over to the window. "Well," she said, pulling the curtain aside, "looks like the neighborhood's out again. We'll survive." She turned back toward me. "I have candles." Within a few minutes, the living room glowed with scattered light, warm, soft, like something out of a memory. She set one on the table beside me and sat back down. "This feels like a different decade," I said. "I like that," she replied. There was a pause, and then she added, "Sometimes I wish I could go back, not for long, just to feel certain things again." "Like what?" She didn't answer right away. She just looked at me, really looked, like what it felt like to be wanted. Not admired, not respected, wanted. The words lingered in the candlelit air between us. My throat went dry. I didn't know what to say, but I didn't look away either. She leaned forward slightly, her voice barely above a whisper. "Do you know what you do to me?" My heart thudded. "Rachel." She placed a hand gently on my arm, just like before. But this time, it didn't feel like a passing moment. It felt intentional. Her fingers pressed lightly into my skin. "You walk around this house like you don't even realize," she said, her eyes searching mine. "Like you don't see the way you've changed, the way you affect things." I swallowed hard. "You're not just talking about things." "No, I'm not." I could feel everything. The blood in my ears, the weight of her eyes on me, the heat from where her hand still rested. "I know I'm older," she continued, her voice softer now. "I know this isn't supposed to happen, but every day you're here, I feel something that I didn't expect. Something I forgot I could feel." Silence stretched. Not uncomfortable, just full, charged. "I never meant for this to happen," she said. "But I can't pretend anymore." I didn't move. My mind raced with reasons to stop this, to pull away. But my body, my heart was doing something else entirely. I looked at her, not as my friend's mom, not as the woman who used to drive us to soccer practice, but as the woman in front of me now, vulnerable, honest, real. "Do you want me to go?" I asked quietly. "No," she said, just as softly. "I want you to stay." I stayed. That night didn't spiral into something reckless. There were no rushed decisions, no passionate blur. Just two people who sat side by side a little longer, who spoke a little deeper, who didn't need the lights on to see each other clearly. But when I finally went to bed, alone, my thoughts didn't slow down. Her words kept echoing. "You don't even know what you do to me." It wasn't just attraction. It was attention, emotion, the kind of connection that makes you feel seen in a way that's impossible to ignore. And now, neither of us could pretend that nothing had changed. The following days passed with an eerie stillness. Nothing was spoken aloud, but everything had changed. Our conversations became slower, more deliberate. Every glance lasted a beat too long. Every moment in the same room carried a kind of breathless hesitation, as if the next word could tip the balance. Rachel didn't bring up what she'd said again. Not directly, but she didn't need to. The night it all came to a quiet answer was calm, like the others. Tyler was still away on his trip with friends, and the house felt unusually still. I had spent the day helping in the yard, trimming hedges and moving old patio furniture into the garage. By the time the sun dipped, my shoulders were sore and my hands rough. As I stepped into the hallway after a shower, she called softly from the kitchen. "Hey, you hungry?" There she was, barefoot again. Her hair was tied back messily, and she wore a simple linen dress, light gray, soft, and held by the thinnest of straps. It was the kind of dress you'd wear only in the comfort of someone you trusted. Dinner was quiet. We both tried to keep things normal, but nothing felt normal anymore. After we cleaned up, I stood awkwardly at the threshold between the kitchen and the living room. She noticed. "You're not staying up to watch a movie tonight?" she asked. I didn't know if what? If I should. Her eyes met mine. There was a pause. Then she tilted her head slightly, a soft smile playing at the corners of her lips. "You should." I sat on the couch while she turned off the kitchen lights and joined me. She didn't sit far. In fact, the moment she settled in, her knee brushed against mine. Neither of us moved away. The opening credits rolled. Some quiet drama. I don't even remember the title. What I do remember is how aware I was of every inch between us. Every breath. Every accidental touch that didn't feel so accidental. About 20 minutes in, she reached for the blanket on the couch arm. She pulled it across her legs, then hesitated, holding the edge out toward me. "Cold?" "A little," I said. She smiled, just barely, and spread it across both of us. And then she leaned in. Not dramatically, not like in the movies, just enough to whisper something I'll never forget. "I meant it, you know?" I turned to her. "Meant what?" She touched my arm gently, and her lips moved closer to my ear. "You don't even know what you do to me." It was almost the exact same sentence as before, but this time her voice carried something heavier, less uncertain. A quiet certainty. I turned slightly, and for a second we were just looking at each other. And all the months of silence, of hesitation, of trying to pretend, it all surfaced at once. I leaned in slowly. If she had pulled away, it all would have stopped. But she didn't. Our lips met, soft, tentative, then steady. It didn't go further that night. It didn't need to. That single moment, our first kiss, held more weight than anything that could have followed. It was acknowledgement, permission, an answer. When we pulled back, she didn't speak. She just looked at me with that same gaze, half wonder, half relief, and gently rested her head on my shoulder. And we sat like that, in the quiet of a darkened living room, with only the fading light of the TV painting moving shadows on the wall. The next morning, she was already in the kitchen when I woke up. Coffee was brewing. She greeted me with a familiar smile, soft, warm, but more open than ever. I didn't know what this meant for the future. I didn't know what Tyler would think or what the world would say. But I knew one thing. There was no pretending anymore. What began as a summer stay had become something much more complicated and much more real. And sometimes what you do to someone isn't about the obvious. It's about how you make them feel seen again.